All right, hello out there in the Cotton Belt. We hope that you are making good use of this sunshine and the warming temperatures that we have here in the Mid-South. I assume that's happening across the belt, wherever you are out there in the Cotton Belt. It is, after all, March now, suddenly, and it is the week after the Mid-South Farm and Gin Show here in Memphis, which was quite a unique situation to be at that show and for it to be 68 degrees outside. I am, in my mind's eye, at that show, it's could be icy and snowy. I mean, it's been that way for many years at the Mid-South Farm and Gin Show that last weekend in February. And it's always fun to have my farming buddies come up from the Delta and, be out in Beale Street with snow across the street. And anyhow, that was not the scene this year. It was 70 degrees. And I had guys texting me that they were out there they couldn't be at the show because they were planting corn on February 27th, which was wild to me. I did confirm with my buddy who texted me that that was the earliest he could ever remember being able to plant corn. So, we work with what we're given out here in agriculture. And so we were given a week of warm temps. So y'all made the best of it. Now, I did spend the weekend at the Gin Show. I was not out in the fields. And it was, to be sure, a great event, as it always is. Tim Price at the Southern Cotton Ginners Association, who they put the show on, he tells me that they will get between 15,000 and 20,000 people through the door at that convention center on a typical weekend, and it felt like that many to me. It was big and bustling and crowded, and it's fun. Man, it's fun seeing all y'all farmers and cotton industry folks all over that convention center and all over downtown Memphis, enjoying some good food and enjoying some good music, or cutting up in the lobby of the Peabody, doing some people watching. That's always my favorite. So, yeah, it was a good time. Now, it was not all fun and games, though. We did have some newsy items come out of this last week of February at the Gin Show. And also, I should mention Commodity Classic, which was happening last week as well, I believe in San Antonio. So, USDA Deputy Secretary Baden was on hand here in Memphis to deliver, he gave a fiery speech on Friday morning at the economic update there at the Gin Show. And man, he got my heart pumping. He's a good orator. He was pretty great. But during that speech, he did announce the One Farmer, One File digitization effort from USDA. That was probably like the most newsy item that he talked about, although he went over a lot of the issues plaguing the industry. You can read more about that One Farmer, One File effort on our website at cottongrower.com. To me, it seems kind of similar to like a patient portal system that medical offices will use, where they give you, a password, your own password to use to log in, to look at your kind of the red tape type paperwork stuff that you will have to do, that y'all are all familiar with for your USDA and FSA type programs. So the highlight of the show, I should say, over the weekend for many is a speech delivered by Joe Nicosia, who is the executive vice president of Louis Dreyfus Commodities. He's got one of these guys with a lot of titles. He's also the senior head of cotton and merchandising there at Louis Dreyfus. Incredibly sharp individual. I'm certain that y'all know about Joe Nicosia. He has a keen eye for what the important factors are out there in the cotton market that impact your bottom line. And he has a talent for delivering that presentation. I mean, it's as entertaining as it is informative. So I don't want to give away our April issue feature, which I'm currently writing on his speech, but I do want to hone in on one thing that Joe devoted a lot of time to in this speech. He actually did this thing where he framed it as a game of Jeopardy, like the TV game show Jeopardy, where he posed questions about a lot of the supply and demand circumstances around the globe and kind of country by country, what's happening in each of them. And it was really a long and detailed lead in he did with this game, where he kind of started angling it towards what he really wanted to discuss, which is the Buying American Cotton Act and how this piece of legislation makes so much sense for our industry right now, and how it's a tool that we can use to get ourselves back on track. Long story short, a summary, because I know that there are many of you who would have liked to have been in the room for Joe's speech. So I'll give you a short summary. Joe said that there is a light at the end of the tunnel for American cotton producers, but that positive price movement hinged on three sort of variables that may or may not come to pass this year. The first are the trade deals from the Trump administration with foreign countries. We need more of those to come through. Most importantly, one with China will have a big impact on our farmers. The second are crop failures elsewhere in the world, which could suddenly lead us to a situation where supply gets pretty short, which would have a bullish impact, of course, on the cotton market. And the third is the one we want to talk about today, and that's the passage of that Buying American Cotton Act. I mean, just for context, Joe gives about, I don't know, maybe an hour-long speech. I would bet that he devoted a full 30 minutes of it, including that Jeopardy game, which was a long way to lead into introducing why we need BACA. Yeah, he devoted about 30 minutes to the Buying American Cotton Act, which should give you an idea of where his mind is when it comes to how important this piece of legislation is for our industry. So he said, yeah, if we were to have all three of these factors come through this year, we could really see some tremendous profitable price swings. You know, watch out if we get all three of those: trade deals, BACA, crop failures elsewhere in the world, according to Joe. Now, the Buying American Cotton Act has been introduced on the floor of Congress earlier this year. We've actually already covered this in an episode of the Cotton Companion, this specific topic. It was a few weeks back. But gang, let me tell you, we've landed an interview with one of the primary champions of getting this bill passed, one of the more prestigious guests we will have ever had on this podcast. And I mean that as no disrespect to the association heads and the extension specialists we've had here. They've all been great to us. But yeah, I figured we could shed some new light on this topic and give a second episode to it, because we got the green light to interview Dr. Greg Murphy, the Republican representing North Carolina's 3rd Congressional District in the U.S. Congress. And he is joining us today on the podcast. Now, Dr. Murphy is the one who he introduced this bill to on the floor of the House of Representatives back in January. And he did so. He introduced the Buying American Cotton Act with a co-sponsor, Representative Sewell from Alabama. And he has just been a great champion of this bill and is proving himself to be a great friend of our cotton industry. His background is largely in medical practice. He is an accomplished surgeon and leads a few medical associations dedicated to advancing the practice of medical care. I know you guys, many of y'all do association work in your professional industry, which is farming, so I know you'll appreciate that. But this guy is sharp, and he has been a champion of our cause. And so we want to bring you our interview with Representative Murphy right now. Well, okay, we are joined now by Representative Greg Murphy, who has graciously made some time for us, despite what I'm sure is a hectic schedule there in Washington, D.C. here this week. Of course, in a vital election year and no shortage of things happening up there. So we're just very sincerely grateful. Congressman Murphy, we're ecstatic to have you with us today. Welcome to the Cotton Companion.
Great. Well, thank you. Thank you very much for having me. I look forward to a great conversation.
Yes, sir. Well, I did a little bit of research on you, and I will have given your background. It's largely in medical care. I know you're an accomplished surgeon, and so it just kind of begs the question. It was kind of interesting for me that was your background. How did this ag bill, Buy an American Cotton Act, which is aimed at bringing some relief to our beleaguered cotton industry, how did that thing first catch your eye as something that you wanted to support?
Well, Beck, I think, your primal role as a member of Congress is to represent your constituents. And, there's the political role, there's talking and voting and doing all these other things, but there's also representing constituents and making sure that, their needs are met and that resources are given to them. A huge part of what happens in my district in Eastern North Carolina is agriculture, and probably if not the biggest or close to the biggest economic engine in that district. And part of that obviously is cotton. I serve on the Ways and Means Committee, which deals with trade, tax, and healthcare. And the fact that our cotton industry really has been under a lot of pressure recently, just trying to work out something, not necessarily through the Ag Committee, but in some way to be able to help our constituents and cotton farmers be able to have a prosperous and a predictable future.
Yeah, very good. Well, we're certainly grateful for you kind of taking up this issue and being a champion of it. Now, I should note when you introduced this thing to the floor of on the floor of Congress, or the House of Representatives there, you had a co-sponsor, Congresswoman Terry Sewell of Alabama, who is notably a Democrat. So how did it come to be that you and Rep. Sewell kind of introduced this bill together?
Well, Congressman Sewell and I are both serve on the Ways and Means Committee. We do a lot of things together, and compared to what the mainstream media will let you know, a lot of things that happen in Congress are bipartisan. The mainstream media doesn't want that because that doesn't sell. It's not drama. But Terry, our Representative Sewell, has been a great ally, especially in things with agriculture. And so working together on issues that are in the Ways and Means space, primarily taxation, and knowing that agriculture is very important for her, it just was a good natural fit.
Yeah, yeah, it's great to see from our standpoint here in the industry that we are seeing some bipartisan support of this bill, and it seems it's got a lot of support. A lot of people are trying to co-sponsor from both sides of the aisle. So it's been great to see in this. You're right, in this era of what gets presented as partisan, always at odds with each other. But this one seems to be an exception. Do you have any ideas for why maybe it is an attractive bill for people from both sides of the aisle, and also some urban folk and rural folk alike? I mean, it seems like it's getting support from all corners.
Yeah, it is. In fact, as of I think this morning, we had 50 co-sponsors. That's really pretty big considering the number of the member of the House of Representatives, and my staff's been doing a great job of helping enroll other people. I think if you look at BACA, the effects that agriculture has on our economy, especially in Eastern North Carolina, but especially in North Carolina and in so many other states, it is huge. And we have a lot of competition going on in the world against our products, and doing everything that we can in every space really helps the entire economy, not only again in North Carolina or Eastern North Carolina, but the entire economy. And so people understand, I support other things in other states that are good for the national economy. And this is one also helping our farmers, but also helping other parts of our industry.
Yeah, again, we're grateful for it. Congressman Murphy, I should give everyone a little peek behind the curtain here. You've already kind of helped me. My March cover story is going to be about the Buying American Cotton Act, and you guys were gracious to give me some answers when I wrote that a week or two ago, and you answered this one before. But can you explain to this bill for those of us who do not speak legalese or politicalese in the real world? How do we expect this bill to work if it were to be passed? What does it do in practice?
Well, simplifying it, it basically incentivizes people, our retailers, et cetera, to use American cotton. So at every different part of the stream, if it's American cotton grown and if it's American cotton that is turned into fabric or where it is sold at a retail market, there are tax incentives to move it along the way. The more American processes and American cotton are in the process itself. And so our retailers get tax benefits. And every part down the road, they get more and more tax benefits the more part of the cotton process is in the United States. People want tax benefits. It helps the economy. It helps their particular businesses. So it's very attractive to those retailers, especially to push this particular bill.
Yeah, yeah. It seems like it makes sense for a lot of different sectors along that cotton supply chain, and for our purposes, especially for our cotton farmers, our producers. And so, yeah, we're happy to have that. Now, I understand it was January 22nd, I believe, that you introduced the Buying American Cotton Act there to the House of Representatives. Can you tell us procedurally what happens from here? It has already made it out of the necessary committees, correct?
No, we've not gotten it through committees yet. So the first part in doing any of this is to submit the bill. And then, the more co-sponsors that you have, the greater pressure it is for the bill to be taken up by a committee. And it'll be taken up by Ways and Means. Again, we cover trade, tax, and certain parts of healthcare. So the more co-sponsors and the more interest shown in the bill, it more shows to, the truth be told, the committee leadership that we need to move this bill. And so once it gets hopefully moved within the committee itself, voted out of committee, would come to the House floor. Hopefully it would pass in the House floor. Then the process similarly has to occur in the Senate, because remember, things have to occur in both chambers. And then hopefully it is a successful outcome over there and then moved, have the president sign it into law.
Very good. I know this is a dangerous question I ask a lot of our economists to handicap what the cotton market's going to do, and I get some. They don't love this one, but I'm going to ask you to handicap this bill's chances. Can you tell us? Do you think it stands a good, decent chance of becoming law? And if so, can you tell us how soon you think that might come to be?
Well, I'll just say this: nothing happens quick in D.C. Nothing happens quick in D.C. I'm a surgeon and I'm used to things happening a lot more quicker, so that's been a big source of frustration. As to the chances of doing this, anytime you have a tax credit, there are a lot of industries that want tax credits. They want to be able to say, all right, we want to give a credit for doing this, a credit for doing that. And so there's a little uphill battle anytime you offer a tax credit. But that said, the administration especially has pushed the fact that we want American businesses to grow. We want American businesses to be successful and have a future. And so I think there is a good pressure to this. I think the chances are good. They're not super. This is not a slam dunk because, again, it is a tax credit and that takes money away from the Treasury. It does. We have to find ways to pay for these things. But again, I think we have a lot of folks that are supporting the bill, and the more that support it, the better chance it has of passing.
Very good. Rep. Murphy, I'll ask you, you talk about garnering support and the number of, I think you said over 50 have kind of signed on to support this BACA. Can you talk about the role that I know you have heard from representatives of the National Cotton Council and some others from the cotton industry, probably some American cotton producers? Can you just talk a little bit about the role that those associations are playing in getting this bill in front of members of Congress?
Well, they're doing a great job. The Cotton Council is doing a fantastic job of publicizing this. In fact, we got a letter just the other day where 75 different organizations are now supporting our efforts to push this bill. So when you have a lot of different organizations that push it, it turns it into a lot of great conversations with other members of Congress. And, just as a point of fact, there are thousands, literally thousands of bills that are submitted every year, most of which go off into the oblivion. It's only about 2 or 4% of bills that actually become law. But the more people that are talking about it, the more trade organizations that are talking about it, the more members of Congress that are influenced by this, I think the better chance of this becoming a reality.
Very good, Representative Murphy. We appreciate you kind of explaining how the sausage gets made for us. This is all good intel for us. So I'll tell you, we are so grateful for your time today, Representative Murphy, but more importantly, for the energy and the effort you have put into championing this bill, which if I'm sure people have tried to impress upon you, it is vital for our industry. I mean, it was, as I mentioned, it was the talk of the Gin Show and the Commodity Classic this past weekend. So we thank you sincerely. And if there's anything we can ever do for you, just let us know.
Well, I appreciate it. The cotton industry has got a lot of pressure on it these days from foreign growers in Brazil, for example, or even synthetic products that are taking over some of the places that is in the cotton space. That said, it's altogether the right thing to do to try to help our industries at home remain viable and continue to be able to be prosperous in the future. So I appreciate the opportunity.
Yes, sir. Dr. Murphy, I couldn't have said it better myself. We thank you and best of luck to you.
Great. Thank you.
Well, all right. That's it for this episode of the Cotton Companion podcast. We want to say thanks again to Congressman Greg Murphy of North Carolina and his staff for making that interview happen. I mean, what a guy. We need more like him in Washington, D.C. As always, we want to thank you, dear listeners, for joining us and for your continued support. We hope that you've enjoyed this episode, and if you did like what you heard, please be sure to spread the word and tell your farming friends and neighbors about the Cotton Companion podcast. Here's where and how they can find us.
You can find the Cotton Companion in 3 easy ways. First, go to cottongrower.com/companion, or simply click the podcast tab at the top of the homepage. Second, subscribe to our channel on iTunes or wherever you find your podcasts these days. And 3, sign up for our weekly e-newsletter, the Cotton Grower e-News, that's delivered to your email inbox every Tuesday morning. You can do that by going to cottongrower.com/subscribe. Also, be sure to follow Cotton Grower on social media. We are at Cotton Grower Mag on Twitter. And on Facebook, you'll find us by searching for Cotton Grower Magazine.
The Cotton Companion podcast is produced by Tyler Hatch and Kim Henderson, our talented colleagues at the world headquarters of Meister Media Worldwide in Cleveland, Ohio. I'm Beck Barnes, and I will be back with you in a couple weeks with the next episode of The Cotton Companion.
God made me a farmer. Yeah, he works and he works and he works and he works all day. God made a